Today's guest has mastered the psychology of attention.
You need to study people. You need to be in a situation where you know what people enjoy, what people like, where you can provide value. And through that value, you get access to the room. I studied.
His unorthodox way of thinking has allowed him to predict narratives, find gaps in the market, and engineer culture.
The most successful people that I've seen, whether it's in business, whether it's in finance, whether it's in politics, they work in units.
Since we last spoke, he's continued building a decentralized network of elite entrepreneurs, all while exposing the hidden tactics elites use to control the world. In this episode, we'll dive into his unfiltered views on government propaganda, expose the real players manipulating crypto markets, and explore the strategic moves he's making right now to create generational wealth in the next decade.
A few years ago, I was a big advocate for fluoride. There's fluoride in the water, tap water's bad. Became mainstream. I talked about BlackRock as one of the governing superpowers of the world, then that became a mainstream conspiracy. But I would say the biggest psyop is
Luke Belmar.
Welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast again.
Welcome to my humble abode. Welcome to Puerto Rico. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far.
Yeah, it's a great house. Great weather here too. We came on spring break, so pretty crowded, but it's been fun. Luke, where should we start here? What's the number one sign someone will never be rich?
Lack of humility. Humility is something that life teaches you through a lot of pain and through a lot of repetition. Humility is the necessary ingredient for you to develop in every aspect of life. You go to the gym, you're humbled because you see somebody stronger with a better physique. You go to school, you're humbled because you realize that you don't know as much as you think. You start a business, you get humbled because you realize you're not as good as an entrepreneur as you think you are. But when you accept that through humility, then you get to learn and grow. The funny thing is, the most successful and wealthy people that I know exemplify a lot of humility. They are teachable. They are students of life. On the other side, I have people that are broke, egotistical, and they have no humility. They think that they know everything. And if you think that you know everything, then there's no room to grow and there's no room to learn. In order for you to succeed in life, you need humility. So if you're not humble, if you're not willing to be in a situation whereby life can teach you lessons, then you're never going to grow. And growth is the essential recipe for success.
And when's the last time you felt like you were humbled? Because you've had a lot of success, but I know you also spend time with a lot of people wealthier than yourself.
I mean, that's what I told you. One of the reasons I live here is because I feel broke. You go on the golf cart, you go a couple houses down, you meet a guy that sold a company for $300 million. You go a couple houses down, you meet a guy that's been in business for 50 years. You walk down the street and you meet a billionaire. So you position yourself in a situation where life intentionally shows you that you're not as great as you think you are. If you're in an echo chamber of validation, if you're the biggest guy, the richest guy, the smartest guy in the room, then you are in the wrong room, because all that does is rub your ego. Shows you, oh, I'm good, I can do all these things. When in reality, through humility, like we talked about, that's the ingredient for success. So I intentionally position myself in a situation where I am taught by other people, where I'm mentored by other people. And I mean, let's talk about crypto, that's a great place to be humbled. Whether it's the market's going down or your portfolio being slashed in half, learning comes from pain, as we mentioned before. So sometimes I create these environments where you have to sit down, put your head down and be like, all right, this guy's better than me. This guy's done this better than me. This guy's excelled in these areas of life where I haven't. Teach me.
And how do you go about finding those people? Like, what would you have advice for 16, 18-year-olds, young men watching this, to go out and find people more successful than them? Is it all online now?
I think your approach is very good. I think it's a combination between rapport and there needs to be a what's in it for me. Every person always has something that's in it for them. So when you go meet somebody who's very successful, you need to figure out what is it that they need? What is it that they want? Which is where we talk about this meme of I studied, right? Like, you need to study people. You need to be in a situation whereby you know what people enjoy, what people like, where you can provide value. And through that value, you get access to the room. Many times in this neighborhood, for example, we talk about my brother, Mr. Belmar, people would entertain conversations with him a lot longer than they would entertain conversations with me. Why? Well, you can teach them about wealth in the sense of how to develop your body, because we talk about wealth not just being money, but how your health is, how your mindset is. So he gets invited to biohacking retreats with very successful people, and certain things that they're looking for that they can't get to them is valuable. So if all you have is money and these guys already have money, then there isn't really something that you can offer them. So by studying these individuals, by tapping into these people, you not only provide value, but value is provided to you in return. So it's a symbiotic relationship. You want something from somebody like a mentor. Well, what are you willing to give them? You know, are you willing to work for free? Are you willing to clean their car? Are you willing to just show up, be a friend? And in return, these people will do favors for you. They'll help you. And that's what a lot of my success has been in life, has been through connecting with people. And the connection comes from getting to know them and studying them and figuring out what are the things that they actually enjoy, the things that they like, being able to provide that. And in return, they provide to me what I need. It's business. I give to you something, you give something to me in return.
And why do you make it such an emphasis to connect with people younger than you? Because I'm guessing you've had mentors in the past that were older than you that kind of gave you that. But is there any other reason that you're friends with so many people, teens, like late or early 20s?
I mean, this upcoming generation, and you've probably witnessed it as well, they are maturing and they're growing up a lot sooner than other generations. When I was 18, 19 years old, I wasn't thinking about business. I wasn't thinking about making money. I was out here kicking a football. I was going out with my friends, hanging out. Nowadays, kids are 16, 17, they're dialed in, they're learning, they're leveling up, they're actually mature. And what you want to do is invest into the future. Just like you would buy a piece of real estate when it's undervalued, investing into people that are the future is also good. And it's the idea of giving back. How I often compare it is to how water moves. If water goes into a place that is stagnant, like a swamp, it's going to create filth, toxicity, and nothing can live. But a river, it creates the ability to bring life because it's going from point A to point B. There's no resistance. Nothing is stuck. If you're blessed in life, you want to bless others. If you are financially capable, you want to bring others along your journey. When I got started, I had mentors in my life that bet on me. And eventually, you can bet on their companies, you can bet on their entrepreneurial journey. And there's an ROI, a massive ROI in investing in the younger generation because they're the future. An old dog can't learn new tricks, but a young dog has no tricks that they've learned yet. So you have the ability to curate them, teach them, and elevate them. I love hanging out with entrepreneurs that are hungry. Once you make money, you lose that hunger. When I got started, I remember I was working 17, 18-hour days. I would feel anxious at night that I couldn't sleep because I was broke. That hunger, that thirst for success, for winning, is what a lot of these young cats have. So being able to invest into that also invigorates me and empowers me to be like, hey, I got to keep going. There's more for it. There's more for me. There's more to do. And through this process, I'm able to not only create a symbiotic relationship, give and receive, because I'm always asking for things in return, whether it's equity or whether it's, hey, come join Capital Club, Elite Entrepreneur Network. But it's also understanding that there are relationships in life that if you want to grow, have to be maintained. And there's 3 types of relationships that every man should have. Every man should have a mentor, somebody that they look up to, somebody that they want to be like, somebody that empowers them to see the potential of who they could become. A peer, somebody that's your friend, somebody that you can confide in, that you can build a friendship, a business partner, a best friend. And then you have mentees, people that you pour into. It could be your younger sibling. It could be somebody that's in school that's a couple grades earlier than you are. And through this process, you have accountability from the top, from the middle, and from the bottom. So every man in their life should have 3 relationships: mentor, peers, and mentees.
I think that advice has been particularly helpful for me, and I found most enjoyment because a lot of the alpha that you're getting in business is not going to be the people way ahead of you. That's going to be the big picture stuff, the mindset stuff. The people that are slightly ahead of you or at your level, that's where you're going to find a lot of alpha. And then the people below you, that's honestly where you get the most gratification, is where you help someone younger than you or less behind you in business. And even if they make a few $1,000s a month when they weren't doing that before, that's just probably the most gratifying thing.
I agree. I have a business partner that about 5 years ago, he was one of my mentees in e-commerce. I got started in e-commerce. That was how I started making my first money online before I rotated and started investing heavy into crypto. His name's Anthony Eclipse, big YouTuber in the dropshipping space. And when I met him, he was like, hey, Luke, I'd like to pay you $1,000 for you to teach me e-commerce. At the time, he was planning to go and be a firefighter. He was at firefighting school and he had a decision to make. Hey, I'm either going to become an online entrepreneur, I'm just going to continue the career path that I'm on. And by investing into him, time, attention, energy, strategies, today he's a multimillionaire. And now we're in business together. So you bet on people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it works, it's extremely gratifying, as you said.
I want to talk about crypto more because since our last podcast, you've had quite an interesting ride / bull run thus far. How is crypto similar to politics?
All right, well, let's talk about the first part of politics and crypto, cabals. You probably saw it with the whole political scene, and you saw it with Trump meme coin. You know, there's a conglomerate or group of people that make decisions. In politics, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, there's little cabals or groups of people that run the show. In crypto, these cabals also exist, whether it's a meme coin cabal, altcoin cabal, Bitcoin cabal, exchange cabal. But you have the ability to enter these circles with a lot more access and ease. But the similarity is information and access to understanding what is happening behind the scenes. If you think that investing is merely looking at a chart and making decisions, that's not really how the big dogs work. The big dogs work off of information. In politics, your edge comes through information. It comes through knowledge. It comes from knowing what your competition is going to do. It comes from leveraging other people and resources that they have to your advantage. You don't think the exchanges talk to each other as much as they hate each other? Of course they do. You don't think the top guys in crypto are out here sharing Telegram channels or Discord groups where they're sharing information about upcoming token launches, or, hey, there's these unlocks that are about to come, make sure you protect your investment, or there's a new seed round that's around the corner, maybe it's a good opportunity for us to make some money. It's the same thing in politics. But the other side is that there's always your competition. For the Democrats, you have the Republicans. For crypto, you have traditional finance. Now it's no longer the same because Trump in office has created a scenario where crypto is now accepted. But we could mention that maybe 5 years ago, crypto and the banks were not friends. They were two completely separate cabals trying to dominate the space. But today they're more so intertwined and married. It's kind of united. But it's about finding these groups that have leverage, that have access to information, and that give you an edge in the market. All you need is an edge. You know, you look at all these highly successful investors from Silicon Valley that cut a check for 20 grand to get access to Uber IPO or access to Airbnb before it was public. What does that come from? That comes from a cabal. That comes from a group of people that get deal flow, that get access to information. So if you can get that, it's a very sweet point. But that comes from what? We talked about it before. Having mentees, having peers, and having mentors. And not only that, but having humility to realize that you don't know everything. Because if you know everything, then nobody can say, hey, check out this piece of information. Hey, look at this new investment opportunity. Because you're thinking that your way of investing, your way of making money is the best. It doesn't work that way. The most successful people that I've seen, whether it's in business, whether it's in finance, whether it's in politics, they work in units.
Luke, I find it interesting that previously you were into more e-commerce and have kind of made this transition into crypto. And it seems like TikTok Shop is a huge opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities since like starting on Amazon. Why do you focus on crypto instead of TikTok Shop?
One of my good friends, his name's Hudson. He owns the brand Comfort. If you are familiar with TikTok, he's the fastest growing e-commerce store in the world.
Comfort clothing?
Yeah, Comfort
Gotcha.
Clothing. And it's a very good brand. I
know Hudson.
Yeah, he's a great
he
guy.
did the teeth whitening product as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the reason I pivoted a few years ago into crypto is because I saw it as a high leverage opportunity. When I got started in crypto, not many people were talking about it. It was still taboo. There wasn't all these exchanges, all these DeFi platforms, these moonshots where you can just make money very quickly or buy some crypto with Apple Pay. It was very cryptic. It was odd. So pivoting when it was green, when it was new, made a lot of sense. I'm always looking for the next best opportunity. I'm agnostic regarding crypto. I'm agnostic regarding e-commerce. I want to go where the market is. And there's seasons for crypto, there's seasons for digital business, and it all goes in ebbs and flows. So you need to understand and be able to read the market. Nowadays, we see e-commerce not only as a viable way to make money, but it's becoming extremely popular. When I got started in e-commerce in 2016, the idea of drop shipping, it's not that it was even frowned upon or even considered. Nobody really even talked about it. The idea of just drop shipping products from China to the United States in a QVC format, it didn't really make sense. But as more people caught on, well, the margins got a little bit more difficult. You had to pivot. And I already was sitting on a good amount of money from my e-commerce ventures. We did 8 figures in e-commerce, and it just made sense to rotate. But once you begin to experience the crypto space, it's kind of like a wormhole. You kind of stick to it. But I've been doing pretty good over the last 2 years to kind of balance it out. So right now, my money's probably 50-50 e-commerce and crypto. Every now and then, crypto gives you a heart attack. ETH drops 50%, and then you sit back and you're like, damn, is it really worth, like going through all this risk to have my potential portfolio nuked 50% in a span of 2 months? It's time to reassess. And a lot of the top crypto guys that I know, they're not necessarily in the trenches trading. They are building products. The richest guys that I know in crypto, they build. They make something of value. They're not playing the casino. They are the casino, which means they are business owners, which tells you the best way still to make money isn't trading meme coins, isn't trading, crypto or stock. It's building a business that solves a real world problem. And by creating demand, which you create it through virality, you create it through people talking about it, you bring supply, and eventually you get rich.
Would you ever build anything in crypto, or have you built anything?
I haven't built anything in crypto directly. I've invested into people that build products. Would I necessarily build something in crypto? I have my Gem Hunters community, which is an ecosystem that allows people for free to join and learn from top traders in the space, whether it's airdrop hunting, whether it's meme coins, whether it's altcoins, leverage trading. But I wouldn't necessarily build a product. I wouldn't say I'm a product builder. I'm a community builder. And I've been able to partner with some incredible teams with the likes of Blofin, which is a crypto exchange. And I let the builders do the building, specifically with crypto. It's tough, smart contracts, managing people's money, privacy, security. I don't want to deal with those things. I'm not a techie guy. I'm not a nerd. It's not really my lane. But I like investing into these guys that are hustling 24/7 to see the new financial paradigm take place. I'm a more direct-to-consumer marketing kind of guy. So e-commerce makes more sense naturally for me because it's direct interaction with consumers with very low risk. So making money in building, I keep it more on the Web 2 side of stuff. When it comes to investing in founders, Web3, crypto, the upside is pretty big. So I do that. I do invest into e-commerce companies, but it's a lot more difficult because you're expecting to either get bought out or you're expecting to make some sort of revenue share from, what the market is going to do when it comes to this store performing or this marketing team actually putting through and having a good Q4, having a good Thanksgiving, Black Friday, or having a good Christmas. With crypto, the upside is massive. I've seen projects go from a $10 million valuation to a $200 million valuation and an exit in a span of 6 months. You really can't do that in e-commerce. So investing, the best, in my opinion, when it comes to companies, is the crypto space. The leverage is massive. But when it comes to building, specifically if you don't have a lot of money, for a lot of the listeners and viewers that are just getting started, you want to do something that is safe, that you can preserve capital. And in that case, it would definitely be e-commerce.
Yeah, I would say I've heard the strategy is kind of, it's really risky to start a brand or a physical product. It might be easier these days with TikTok Shop to just make some money marketing someone else's product and eventually acquire equity within that. So you already have a proof of concept as opposed to doing a launch from zero. Like, how would you go about it if you had maybe a few $1,000s saved up?
I would be a hyper affiliate for like on TikTok Shops for a brand that's already doing extremely well, because it's all about risk and reward. You know, you're not going to make infinite amount of money with a couple $1,000s in the markets, but if you're doing TikTok Shops, affiliate marketing, and you're looking to make $5,000, $10,000 a month with no risk, and all you're doing is creating short form content, then all you have to do is test products and see what hits. Test creatives, test products, and you get an outcome. When I got started in e-com, there was no free traffic. There wasn't any, scrolling. You had to spend money on ads, see if it worked. If it didn't work, you would have to go source another product, see if it worked, create a creative, and run ads to it. Today, all you have to do is pull out your phone, source a product or have a company send you the product, do some creatives, see if they hit, and then you can scale. And like you said, if you perform well, because a lot of companies are looking for marketing, then you can get what? Negotiating power. You get leverage. And leverage is what you want at the table when it comes to equity. You can say, hey, I provide this, right? Marketing, eyeballs, attention, awareness, and in return, I would like a piece of the business. But you can start e-commerce for literally $0, 100%. And in fact, not only can you start for $0, you can already see things that are already working, viral videos, viral clips, replicate them, and start making your first dollar. That's what we teach in Ecom Society, how you can make your first $1,000 online through e-commerce, whether it's TikTok Shops, affiliate marketing, Amazon FBA, general drop shipping, building a brand. The paradigm is super vast in e-commerce, but if you're just getting started, it's pretty much risk-free.
Is there anything ultra specific, like super scrappy you would do? If we put Luke Belmar back in his early 20s, broke, like how would you scale just a TikTok business, you filming content with what you know now?
So the number one thing that I've learned over the last 8 months is how to create virality. So once you find something that's viral, whether it's a piece of content or a product, the goal is to replicate that virality time and time again. A few years ago, we ran a product on TikTok Shops before it was even popular to run, your own TikTok shop, your own TikTok ads, where we had shower heads. And these shower heads, you probably see them on the internet nowadays. They're the filtration systems. And what we would do is we would, put a bathroom full of dirt, and then we would just spray it down. And we would spray it down with, a regular shower head, which was intentionally put with like lower pressure. So it looked like terrible. It caused frustration, and then we put our shower head with better music, super high pressure, cleaning it instantly, viral. Why? People watched it. People were like, oh, this is nice. We did the same thing with swords, little samurai swords. We did the same thing with lighters. We did the same thing with different cleaning products, with animal products. But the number one thing that you're looking for virality is people to comment. That's the number one thing, engagement. Because engagement tells the algorithm that people are interested. And you can fabricate that. You can fabricate that through a call to action. You see it nowadays. People say, hey, comment a specific word. And that specific word creates what? Engagement. That's the first front. The second front is having something that people can talk about consistently. So something that could work is having like a typo inside of your ad. People, they want to correct you. They're the Nazis of spelling. Hey, you wrote this wrong. That's a good way. The number one objective for virality is finding something that creates people, that makes people act, and then just doubling down on that time and time again. I've done it multiple times, whether it's memes of me, whether it's memes of other people, whether it's talking about products. It's finding that winning piece of content and just doubling down on it. We talk about it. You see plenty of memes of me on the internet. We test them, they go viral, and then we just double down on them. Just post the same clip hundreds and hundreds of times in very similar formats, and every single time they just continue going. And people just talk, and I just love it. Every time they talk, you get more views. Every time they talk, you make more money. And the number one thing that I learned is that you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create original YouTube content. You can take content that exists, that works, and just make it better. You don't need to create a new winning ad strategy or a new creative. Just find what is working, research, double down on it, and scale it. And through repetition, you'll gain views, and views equal dollars.
You've explained this a bit, but I want to hear you go more in depth. What makes a good meme?
What makes a good meme? 3 things. Memes, what's the basis of memes? Laughing, criticizing, and heavy emotions. Laughing is entertainment. That's what people are there on social media for. So you need to give people what they want. I look at the biggest creators in the world, whether it's Speed, Aiden Ross, Ashton Hall. They're okay being laughed at. They're okay being memed, but they do this on purpose. They're some of the smartest guys that I know, right? So I was like, okay, let me double down on being a joker. Let's see if that works. And it works. You get 100 million views instead of being taken seriously. You get laughed at, but laugh equals dollars. Jokes equals attention. And ultimately, your goal isn't to be liked or disliked. Your goal is to be known, and your goal is to be seen, because that's what we're here in social media, is to be famous. I don't care what perceptions change. People's thoughts change. What you want is to double down on laughter, the ability to be criticized, or having something that causes like a heavy emotion. That's one of the reasons why the top creators in the world, they provoke a certain emotion. Whether it's anger, fear, frustration. You look at Brian Johnson, he pushes the idea of never dying. You look at Andrew Tate, he pushes the idea of anti-feminism. You look at Speed, he pushes the idea of just traveling the world, connecting now with basically every culture, and he assimilates cultures. You look at Aiden Ross, people just laugh at him. People think he's an idiot, but in reality, the kid's a super genius, and he understands that if he gets laughed at, he doesn't have to be taken seriously. And if you don't get taken seriously, you're not a threat. And if you're not a threat in business, you can print money. So being the joker today is more profitable than it's ever been. So being a meme, becoming a meme, or creating memes around your product persona is infinitely scalable, as long as you understand that attention can be monetized, but you have to have a bucket of monetization, whether it's ad revenue, whether it's a product at the end of the day. And yeah, I think that's the number one ingredient too. Strong emotion isn't enough. You need people to interact. You need something that causes people to say, hey, like, let me go out of my way to comment. Let me give you my energy. Let me give you my time and attention. We post 700 clips a day on the internet. You think I'm reading through every comment? You think I'm going through every single post and being like, okay, what did this person say? I'm not. I don't give a fuck. But I know the pieces of content because of my data that go hard, and we just double down on those time and time again. And they just continue to work. If you have, some sort of meme culture or understanding of what's taking place on the internet, there's 2 types of memes. There's trending memes and there's lifetime memes. So lifetime memes would be kind of like most of the lifetime memes are old school, and they're most likely people that are not on the internet. They're like already kind of like historic figures. Whether you look at the "Why Are You Gay" guy, he's not on the internet, but he's an infinite meme. Then you look at memes that are like trending memes that might last 6 months or a year, like the Ashton Hall running. That meme will have its lifespan, and then he'll have to transition as a character into something else. You look at somebody like Kobby Lame. He's what? He's memeing memes. So the infinite loop that you can do around content needs to be create strong emotion, evoke strong emotion, but that's not good enough. You need people to act. You need people to actually give you the energy and attention, because now you become what? Cemented in their minds. And people don't have big attention spans. So you have to consistently be at the front of their mind. It doesn't matter how, just consistently be at the front of their mind. Whether it's a product, a brand, or a persona, that's the number one game, because what you're fighting against is attention. How many reels or TikTok clips does somebody watch in a day, and how many do they actually remember?
It's a good point.
None. But you're still there, and you're competing against that same territory. And the only way for you to keep that territory is for people giving you their attention, and for people to directly engage with you through strong emotion.
You said attention equals money, laughter equals money, energy equals money. How much would you say the "I studied bro" meme made you?
I mean, we saw a massive surge in sales and subscriptions for Capital Club. And not only that, but once we saw that it was working, we decided to double down on it. So I think we posted 1 or 2 clips that got about 1 million views, because that's what we do. You test proof of concept, and then you look at the engagement, right? What are people saying? What are people commenting? And you dictate sentiment, right? So if the sentiment is just neutral or you're just getting laughed at, I don't give a fuck. As long as it's not negative sentiment, it's totally fine. So we went from doing 10 million views on that clip saying, hey, let's actually go all in on this meme. And we did over 120 million views in 3 months, just specifically that clip. Will people remember the meme necessarily? Maybe, maybe not. They'll like it, some won't like it, but they'll remember the face and they'll remember the name. And that's all that matters, because in 10 years from now, I'll have many memes come and go. But the point is to stay top of mind and have strong emotions evoked and create people a desire to what? Interact and engage. This is robotic. This feature, this scrolling feature is robotic, doesn't mean anything. Commenting, giving your energy and attention, that's where the money is at. So take something that's working. Once again, we talk about humility, right? I don't give a fuck what people think. So take humility, double down on it as a creator, see what works. Those people that take themselves too seriously never scale. They never grow because everything's manicured, everything's tailored. You don't want that. You want to be part of the internet. And internet culture is all around memes, dude. I come from the meme coin space in the crypto game. You know, I understand meme coin culture. I understand meme culture. So based on that, we just double down, because the same way people think in crypto, they think about in the real world. What do I want to laugh at? How do I want to be entertained? What provokes strong emotion? That's why sometimes we just have to stir the pot a little bit. And once you find something working, just double down on it and just remember the name.
How do you manufacture, I guess, the whole, when people are commenting something consistently and that becomes a trend? Would you say those are manufactured, like the this happened before GTA 6 we talked about in the last podcast, or when everyone was commenting on TikTok, like, what color's your Bugatti? Like, I believe I've seen some comments that are like, I studied, bro. But how can you get people to start commenting that? Do you manufacture the comment section as well?
Absolutely. We have farms. Yeah, we have farms. I have Filipinos, people in Vietnam, all day, every single day, commenting, managing sentiment, controlling sentiment. Do you understand that the #1 meme in the world is Donald Trump? He's the #1 meme. He gets memed every single day for something different. You don't think he knows? But he has attention. He has awareness. Do you think he cares that he's the orange man, that he doesn't give a fuck? But he knows how to get people to react. So what you want to do is you want to create the sentiment. We did it in social media now recently. Proof of concept got 250 million views per month. That's what we're averaging. But we also did it in e-commerce back in the day. Back in the day in e-commerce, we were running pet products. And we would tell people, hey, we would run the pet products. We would have people comment, oh, this is a really good product. And our response would be through a third-party account that would look like a real person. Well, can you show me a picture of your dog? And they would comment with the picture of their dog. And I would have another third-party account comment and be like, that dog is super ugly. And everybody would go and attack that profile. It's an imaginary profile, but people wanted to defend that dog. And what does it cause? It causes the algorithm to pick it up and be like, people are engaging with this. Engagement equals what? Attention. Attention equals dollars. And that month we did, I think, 2.4 million.
It's super interesting how the patterns are with social media. That was a pattern I learned doing true crime content, was that people actually cared more about pets being hurt than they cared more about humans being hurt. And it's like, once you've put in enough reps on social media and talked about all these various topics, you realize there's only certain things that go viral with certain twists. People making fun of pets is definitely one. How are Trump's tariffs affecting e-commerce and crypto?
Well, let's talk about how Trump's tariffs are affecting e-commerce. As you know, I have Capital Club. In Capital Club, which is some of the most elite entrepreneurs on the internet, about 70% of them are in the e-commerce space. In fact, yesterday I was on the call with one of the biggest suppliers of NAD supplements in the world. NAD is a nootropic. And when I asked him, hey, what's the status with your fees? Are you paying more? And you said, no, I'm not paying an extra $1. Why? He's like, well, first of all, I'm not selling to the US. So it doesn't matter because US can't impose tariffs between France and China. So what a lot of manufacturers are doing is they're just redirecting their warehouses to a third-party country. So they'll just go to Vietnam, They'll go to Thailand and they'll just ship from there. 2, China doesn't pay taxes. And number 3 is that drop shipping has changed. You can't just ship things from China anymore, for a $3 profit margin, because there's no longer room for that. That's why building a brand, a moat, something that gives you the ability to kind of have an audience outside of, paid traffic is really good, where you can run an Instagram story, or you can continue to post on your feed or a reel, and that just generates natural sales. The issue that I found with e-commerce and the tariffs was on the opposite side of the spectrum, which was luxury brands. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes. All of these brands were manufacturing a lot of their stuff in China, and then they were shipping it to Italy or to France for assembly. These people got pretty much exposed because the quality that people thought was this artisan quality of Europe was in fact artisan quality from China, or these products and the goods, or whether it's the leather or the metal that was used, is actually coming from China. So these people had to basically reinvent their supply chain. When it comes to crypto, specifically Bitcoin nowadays, whether we talk about Bitcoin being co-opted by BlackRock or co-opted by the US government, it's very much tied to the stock market and to the performance of what the government is saying. It used to be that crypto wasn't necessarily correlated, but today it is. It pretty much acts as a glorified tech stock. So when Trump says, hey, tariffs are going to be imposed and, growth is going to slow down, revenue might become stagnant, the entire market creates what? A sentiment. Moments create sentiments. Sentiments dictate the market. And crypto is a lot more susceptible, to sentiment. You see big market swings. But nowadays, there might not really be a big differentiation between the stock market and the crypto market. There's no reason why a company like Nvidia should be swinging 8% a day off of a Trump tweet. That sounds like a meme coin to me. It doesn't sound like something that is stable. It sounds like speculation. It doesn't make sense that Elon Musk sends out a tweet and his Tesla stock can either pump or dump. It doesn't really make any sense unless it's a glorified meme coin that runs off of sentiment. The entire stock market is off of sentiment. So when you have tariffs that cause uncertainty, that sentiment of uncertainty makes people sell off their bags. So I would say tariffs are not necessarily going to be an issue for e-commerce. I don't think so whatsoever. I think merchants will pivot. If they can't sell to the US, they'll sell to the rest of the world. There's plenty of people. When it comes to investing, you just need to be very careful that with one tweet, your bags could be nuked 50%. But also with one tweet, your bags can go up. Whether it's your crypto bags, your stock portfolio, it doesn't really make a difference. And we see a lot of speculation. And the speculation gives room for what? Volatility. And volatility is where traders make money. I'm not a trader myself. I'm a long-term investor. I'm a swing trader. I like, 3-6 month long trades, maybe a little bit longer. But in crypto, that's very risky. You would have held, and we were talking about ETH, for example. If you would have held ETH for the last 4 months, you would have been down about 60%. So you also need to understand that the market is a lot more fragile than it would be if sentiment wasn't easily provoked. When I got started in crypto back in 2016, buying Bitcoin for about $588, the sentiment was harder to move because crypto wasn't on social media. In fact, social media wasn't really even used or talked about in that same context. Today, one tweet goes viral around the world, gets 100 million impressions, 5 million investors see it at the same time, and it creates a reaction. So I think the tariffs, what they're doing is they're exposing the fragility of the system, and they're exposing how easy it is to manipulate people through sentiment. And once again, you cause and evoke an emotion. You cause and evoke an emotion, you get people talking, and then you lead to an action, in this case, buying or selling. We saw Trump tweet saying, "This is a good time to buy." I don't know if you saw that tweet. And within 3 hours, the market just absolutely ripped up. called that outsider trading. He told everybody this shit's about the pump, but that's sentiment followed to action, and action leads to outcome. Doesn't matter. Like you talked about, everything's about pattern recognition, whether it's e-commerce, crypto, social media marketing, building a personal brand. Control sentiment, control narrative, and you control the outcome.
On the pattern portion, I think that's a very good take on the way sentiment is, especially with social media. Things would not have crashed the way they are because the information would have been publicly distributed like it is today, even compared to 10 years ago, because all this stuff wouldn't be on the news.
Much
Trump
more
wouldn't
risk
be speaking
control,
24/7. Yeah.
slower pace of distribution, slower pace of people receiving the information. Today, you don't have to wait for the New York Times to roll out, hey, a headline, and then that headline get translated in Chinese in order for the Chinese investor to make a decision. Today, just hop on Twitter and everybody sees the same exact thing at once. So things are getting pretty volatile, which is good. It shows you, once again, the fragility of the system, but once again, volatility creates what? Opportunity. And with the opportunity, if you're smart, is when you make money.
In this bull run, what have you learned about cryptocurrency that you didn't realize in previous bull runs? Because one I noticed was that the cycle tended to be Bitcoin pumped, then altcoins pumped, then meme coins pumped, then there was room for NFTs in the last cycle. But this one seems to be Bitcoin straight to meme coins. Why do you think that is?
I think people realize that altcoins are meme coins, and they said, fuck utility. We're here to gamble. That's what we're doing. We're gambling. I'm 100% authentic about it. When I buy a meme coin like Chill Guy and I lose $800,000 on it, it's a fucking gamble. There's nothing telling me that I should buy it except I believe that somebody's going to buy it off of me later on because the hype is going to continue. But you're doing the same thing in the stock market. You're assuming that somebody's going to buy this at a later price than you for more than you paid. And I would say the cycle now is different. I would say Bitcoin and then everything else. You have Bitcoin doing its own thing, whether it's been institutionalized, co-opted, it's run by the government, it's run by BlackRock, it doesn't really make a difference. But now you have all these legit projects coming up, and let's say they've been working on it for 5 years, but it's boring. Nobody really understands it. It has no adoption. Influencers can't talk about it because it's too complicated to express or understand. But you can say, hey, Pepe coin, here's Pepe. This is a meme coin. Have you ever seen Pepe on your news feed? Okay, perfect. Well, that's the reason we buy it. That's it. And people are realizing that most of these altcoins are what we like to call vaporware, which is there's no reason for this business to actually have a coin. They're just having it because they're trying to make money, which is totally fine as long as you're transparent about the fact that it's a meme coin. The reason I like meme coins is because there's no actual guarantee of return. You're just speculating and gambling that the price is going to go up or down if you're shorting it. But this cycle, it's Bitcoin alone leading like nothing else. And then you have everything else. In between it, you have a small bracket of altcoins like Solana, like Ton, that have real utility. And not only have real utility, they have a real ecosystem and real users. But you can also look at projects like XRP. What does XRP do? I don't know. They say it's the remittance, the ISO remittance of the world. It's bullshit. Not really a thing. It's a fucking glorified meme coin that's worth $100 billion. And you're looking at the CEO of it and he's dumping on your head. But they have such good lore, such good storytelling. You have dozens of YouTube channels that just cover this. It's meme coin culture. And once you understand that, you realize that most of the things that they sold you about crypto are just schemes wrapped and masked in utility versus just saying, hey, this is a meme coin. We're betting on culture. We're betting on what? Narrative plus distribution plus engagement in order to have the market pump. But then you have Bitcoin, which is kind of the store of value, which once again, all of that is sentiment. The moment Michael Saylor sells a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, and says, hey, MicroStrategy has to protect themselves a little bit here. We have to sell. What does that do to the sentiment of the market? What do you think happens if Michael Saylor sells a little bit of Bitcoin, publicly reveals it? A lot of people are going to lose confidence. Confidence is a sentiment. If you lose confidence, the chart goes down. Prediction. Michael Saylor, at some point, decides to sell some Bitcoin, publicly announces it, I guarantee you the market goes down. If I'm wrong, I'll give somebody in the comment section $1,000.
That's a good one.
You just have to comment, I studied.
That's a good one. I remember when Elon sold Tesla's holdings, it crashed the price a little bit. I don't want to delve into that too much, but is the marketing of Bitcoin decentralized?
Yes, at this point, because you'll see a shop, a kiosk in Peru or in Bolivia or in El Salvador that has a Bitcoin logo. That's marketing. So marketing can go through word of mouth. It can be organic, grassroots. Bitcoin's been around for over a decade. Or you can have artificially designed marketing or distribution. And either way, yeah, I would say it's organic with Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has a lot of believers. Simultaneously, do you think Larry Fink from BlackRock started talking about Bitcoin before he had his bags packed? Before he said, hey, I have to have my bag ready to go, because he has a lot of what? Leverage. So when he says, hey, BlackRock's about to launch an ETF, I think Bitcoin is a store of value. If he's saying Bitcoin is a store of value against government uncertainty, you better believe his bags are fucking packed. So he is the marketing machine behind Bitcoin as well. Institutional money is very tied to crypto. Banking nowadays is very tied to crypto. The government is very tied to crypto, and they have to sell it to somebody. Whether you're an ETF, Bitcoin has to sell the ETF, or the idea of a store of value, in order for the ETF to sell. BlackRock makes money off of what? Management fees. So they need people to hold on to their Bitcoin in order for them to make money. They don't make money just off of the price of Bitcoin going up because they're holding Bitcoin on behalf of people. They're just an ETF. So the sentiment can be both artificial and organic. With Bitcoin, I think it's a little bit of a different situation. With altcoins, it's pretty much all engineered through marketing agencies, through influencers. But once again, marketing agencies and influencers pretty much all you have in order to reach people. So it makes sense that that's the means of communication. But I think Bitcoin is in a different plane, different reality of its own.
What would it take for Bitcoin to hit $1 million?
Bitcoin will inevitably hit $1 million for one of two reasons. Either the US government or other governments continue to print currency, which means the current dollar value that you have is going to go down. Or two, people are going to realize that the fiat system is a scam and that they need to run from institutional banking to another third-party asset or a safe haven that they can custody themselves, like Bitcoin. I had a lawsuit a while ago. It was about 3 years ago. Not very big, small little lawsuit. But for security purposes, the bank says, hey, we're going to freeze some of your funds. I'm like, what do you mean some of your funds? If they're my funds, then how are you freezing them? I'm like, oh, well, it's the policy. They couldn't do that if I had my own ledger with my own Bitcoin. So as governments begin to become more erratic, as governments become more authoritarian, you're going to see people flee to Bitcoin. The reason this is interesting is because the viewers that are listening that are not from America, from a first world country, will understand what I'm talking about. You can't trust the Zimbabwe government. You can't trust the government from, Nepal to have the best policy in the world. So you have to have a hedge against what? Bad policy, theft, and Bitcoin is, at least for third world countries, a phenomenal asset to have. Pull up the chart of Bitcoin versus the Japanese yen. When the Japanese market was crashing, Bitcoin was at an all-time high in proportion to the yen because it acts as a counter of the sentiment that people have towards the security that their government is providing. What is the dollar backed by? The good faith and credit of the United States. That's what the FDIC insurance says. And two, it's the military. So if you can't trust the FDIC, right? If your money isn't insured, if the banks can just take it, and if the US no longer is the superpower of the world, then the dollar weakens. That's why Bitcoin is this safe haven that people are running to. For first world countries where people have Venmo and PayPal and Cash App and it's easy to send money and, I can send you $100,000 in a wire and it might take 2-3 days, it might be inconvenient, but the money will land, the money will stay in your bank account. It may not feel like what I'm saying is legitimate. But if you come from a third world country where you don't know if the bank that you're operating under is a Ponzi scheme, if you're in the Ukraine and they don't let you pull more than $200 cash when a war starts, or they say, hey, you can't move $100,000 of gold because we think that that is money laundering, all you have to do is buy Bitcoin and you can move it from any place around the world with full self-custody. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin. That's why I respect Bitcoin. I respect the robust system that it has, while still understanding that when it's all said and done, sentiment is what controls the price of Bitcoin. But back to your question, what is it going to take for Bitcoin to hit $1 million? One of two things. Naturally, people will adopt it because it's a better form of money. Or two, the government will continue to fuck up, print more money, and naturally, it'll be, in comparison to Bitcoin, the price will go up.
I think that was my biggest sell on Bitcoin when I got into it, was realizing just that it's objectively easier to make, I don't want to say a specific wallet, let's just say a trust wallet, and fund money into the account, send it to your friend, than it is for someone to start a bank in a third world country. I actually had an issue. The editor that's doing this podcast, we gave him like a $3,000 payment. It was like 2 or 3 months of work. And he's a kid, like 17 years old from South America, and they shut down his bank for like months. And they like had him questioned for all this stuff because they're like, a teenager in South America shouldn't have this much money. And he just completely was unable to work for a couple of months. So I think what you're saying is extremely valid. If you wanted to enslave the human race without them knowing it, how would you do it?
Social media and algorithms. People think that AI is going to enslave humanity, but most of the world today already operates off of AI and algorithms. I think the biggest threat for society today is comfort. People are comfortable with mediocrity. I watched this video. It's a very sad video, but it made me realize the power of social media and how social media is a coping mechanism, very dystopian coping mechanism for people's problems. It's a coping mechanism. It's like a poison, and it's done intentionally. Whether Facebook or Meta hires a ton of psychologists to figure out what are the best patterns that people should repeat consistently in order to create a habit. I was watching one of these videos. We're talking about Ashton Hall now. He's the biggest creator in the world. And everybody was doing what? Replicating his meme, right? They would dunk their face in cold water and go for a run or whatever. As I was scrolling the internet, a video of one of these replicas hit me. And it was this little kid in the Strip of Gaza. The Strip of Gaza, where bombs are dropping on people's heads. Free Palestine. Dropping on people's heads. And people's coping mechanism is still social media. People are still glued to their phones regardless of what's happening around the world. So you have this little kid that's recreating Ashton Hall that's all the way in Miami, doesn't even know them, doesn't even understand what he's really doing, but it's a coping mechanism from what? From reality. And what happens is social media is like this glass box of dopamine where you think you're accomplishing something, where you feel some sort of pleasure, the likes, the comments, but none of that is real. It has to materialize into something. So I think the biggest way to enslave humanity today is social media and the algorithms that are pushed by what we call the technocrats of the world.
Stop rewarding yourself for doing nothing, basically.
And that's why I don't use social media. I'm one of the largest creators on social media. I'm one of the largest short form distributors on the planet. I don't have TikTok on my phone. I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of these things. Why? Because I'm projecting and broadcasting into the matrix. I'm not trying to be in it.
Aside from social media being designed to make us depressed, what's a conspiracy theory you 100% know is true?
You want to talk about something crazy that we were just discussing before the podcast? Root canals. There's this YouTube video, which before was a documentary on Netflix before it got pulled after 2 weeks, known as The Root Cause. The Root Cause discusses the big psyop by dental industry and by big pharma to fuck people's health up through root canals. Root canals filled with mercury, formaldehyde, and all sorts of chemicals that disrupt your meridian lines. They disrupt the ability to actually think properly. A lot of signs of dementia attached to the heavy metals in the body. But this is, common dentistry practice nowadays. I would say the biggest psyop or the biggest conspiracy theory is that people think that their mouth or their teeth isn't connected to the rest of their body and that there are no consequences for poor dental health. If you want to watch, the root cause, you can't even watch it in the United States. You have to turn on a VPN because it's banned by the American Dental Association, which is in bed with Big Pharma. And I can say that because dentists can't say it because they'll lose their license. But I can say it because I don't have a license. If you have a root canal, get it out of your mouth, go to a biodentist, and you'll realize that there's 30 million plus people a year getting root canals, and a lot of them are getting sick, whether it's the idea of ADHD, cancer, losing your memory, having heart failure. Everything can be tied back and connected to root canals. I know it's a big one that people weren't talking about and haven't been talking about because a few years ago, I was a big advocate for fluoride. Hey, there's fluoride in the water. Tap water's bad. Tap water's for NPCs. Tap water's for bots. Became mainstream. Everybody talked about it. I talked about BlackRock as one of the governing, superpowers of the world. Then that became a mainstream conspiracy. Root canals. Watch it. It's one of the biggest psyops in the world. But people are slowly waking up. And after this piece of content, I'm sure a lot of people will look into it and get them extracted and removed.
So you said 30 million people in the US.
30 million people a year in the world.
Wow. And then that's just, when do you get a root canal? Just like when a cavity
touches your nerve or it's getting close to your nerve and you can't save the tooth. So basically a root canal is the embalming of a dead tooth. So you're embalming a dead tooth, something that shouldn't be in your body, but they keep it there in perpetuity, whether it's for aesthetics or looks or you just are trying to save the tooth. But everybody knows in dentistry that a root canal is full of bacteria. And I had a root canal recently removed. And once they did the DNA biopsy on the tooth, they found 20 different types of parasites growing and living inside of my jaw, which is absolutely horrendous. And obviously the dentist isn't going to tell you that. And many times the dentists don't know themselves. So stay away from fluoride, which we've talked about, ladies and gentlemen. And now stay away from root canals. New conspiracy, I got you.
So you should just kill the tooth, like remove the tooth completely.
Remove the tooth, remineralize the jaw, and then implant zirconium. Zirconium implant, never have a metal implant in your mouth. Zirconium implant made mostly, if I'm not mistaken, in a way that doesn't have any metal. I think it's 0.005 or 0.05% metal. And then it basically grips really well to your jawbone. And that's the way to heal. It takes about 3 to 6 months to properly heal from a tooth extraction. No smoking, no high fructose corn syrup, no sugar. You need to also eliminate the things that are rotting your teeth. Everything collectively in the world is designed to fuck you up, whether it's food, water, big pharma, medicine. And you just have to be very alert, very aware, because the root canal that I got when I was living back in Argentina, small little village, and it was the local dentist. He didn't know any better, but I had to deal with, what I believed was ADHD or brain fog. And as soon as my root canal was removed, within 48 hours, this big weight that was on my head disappeared instantly. And I said, wow, I can't imagine how many more people are in the very same situation that I am, that they think that they have dementia or they can't focus when in reality, there's something wrong with their body. And it can be traced many times to the teeth.
So the main cause of cavities is sugar, you would say?
Well, no, the main is poor dental hygiene.
Yeah.
It's just across the board. If you smoke a lot, you'll burn your teeth.
So do you brush your teeth?
Yeah, absolutely. Coconut oil, amazing way to brush your teeth. Coconut oil, hydrogen peroxide is very good. No fluoride toothpaste is very good as well. Menthol, mint. Everything needs to be organic. Everything needs to be clean. If you're putting it in your mouth, if you're not going to swallow it and eat it, then it shouldn't be on your body altogether. So I'm very conscientious about what I ingest, what I drink, what I eat, because I know that it has real world consequences with everything that I do. But it's a long-term process. People were never taught that their teeth are actually organs connected to the rest of their body. You can actually find the meridian lines and how certain teeth are attached to different organs. And the root canal that I had was actually attached through meridian lines to the heart. And I was previously diagnosed with some heart issues. And those heart issues, they did a biopsy and they found certain bacteria, and those bacteria were actually found in the same root canal as well. And then they traced that there was a septic tooth that was through the bloodstream going into the heart. I've had relatives die, from heart failure, and I can trace all of them. All of them had root canals. It's very, very crazy. A lot of people that I know that have cancer, they have root canals. So it's the biggest conspiracy theory that, well, because of me, we're famous, will now become extremely well known and talked about, that people in the dental industry really couldn't talk about. And I've talked to dentists that are biodentists that have had, like mafia level pharma come to them saying, hey, we're going to send patients in, and if you tell them that mercury poisons your body, we're taking your license away. We're taking you to jail. And that's the power, that's the grip that pharma has on the American and on the American people, on the American kind of perspective of what is health. When they tell you that, hey, you're going to eat all this sugar, all this candy, it's totally fine for you. Just brush your teeth with fluoride toothpaste, Colgate 2-3 times a day, floss once a day, 2 times a day with nylon plastic, and you'll be totally fine. And that's just simply not the case. So a lot of people have fucked up teeth, especially you guys from the UK. UK people have fucked up teeth. Get your shit checked out.
It's always easy to tell when someone's from parts of the UK. Is that why you stopped smoking?
Yeah, so I no longer smoke weed. I think there's a time and place for everything, but I think I've already outsmoked my competition, which was Snoop Dogg. I was smoking too much, and I just realized that it was no longer healthy for me.
What's too much?
Damn, you really want me to go into it? Okay, what is too much? 5-6 joints a day, like aggressive, not unnecessary, an addiction. Anything done in excess becomes bad, and then you can justify it, saying, hey, I got money, I got tens of millions of dollars in the bank account, I can smoke. Well, but it's not about just being able to do something. Paul in the Bible has an interesting verse. He says, I can do all things, but not all things are good for me. So it's like everything is permissible, but not everything is good. And yeah, in life it's the same thing. You can do anything you want, but there's real world consequences to those actions. So no more cannabis, no more smoking. I really want to take care of my body. And once I realized that your teeth decay because of smoke, the smoke burns your teeth, I was like, I need to protect the teeth. Health is wealth, as we talked about in the beginning. And if you can be healthy, then all these other areas of your life begin to even out. If you're not healthy, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, how are you going to live a successful life? And then the successful people, or the rich people, and don't let me say successful because money doesn't make you successful. It's just one front and one paradigm. They justify their bad habits and their bad behaviors and their addictions and all these things, saying, well, I can do this because I'm rich. That's fine. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You could have done it when you were broke as well, but that doesn't mean that that's good for you. So you can do all things, but not all things are good for you. And once I read that, I was like, if I love myself and I want what is best for me, then I need to be able to put down the things that are holding me back, not just cognitively, not just functionally, but when it comes to health. Because true success is measured throughout a lifespan. It's not measured throughout 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I want to be able to have a family one day. I want to be able to grow old. I want to be able to live to 120 years of age. And most doctors will agree that smoking is one of the worst things that you can ever do. So it doesn't matter if you're successful. It doesn't matter if you have money. I actually tweeted it the other day. I said, if you're broke and you're smoking weed, you're an absolute idiot. And I had people commenting, the most successful people that I know smoke weed. That's cool. But the anomaly doesn't justify the common narrative or the consensus. And the consensus is smoking is bad for you, whether you like it or not. Keep doing it if you want to. It's your life. I don't give a fuck, But understand that there's a real world consequence to every action. Everything counts. It's the principle that I had to learn. Everything matters. Everything compounds, whether positive, negative, everything builds up. If all you're doing is being unhealthy, your body will reflect it. If you are healthy, your body will reflect it. And if you're driving towards success because your vessel is the vehicle that you use to achieve your dreams, if it's not optimized, it'll take you a lot longer to get to where you want to go. So why would you put, kerosene in a Ferrari when you know it's not going to be compatible? You were not going to do that. So you take care of your car, you take care of your house, but you don't take care of the temple where you actually reside. It makes no fucking sense. So once I started having these conversations, not justifying my actions with other success that I had, my life began to slowly change. And the worst thing you want to do is work your entire life, build some sort of success, and not be able to enjoy it or enjoy your family because you don't have health. That to me is absolute failure. And I just refuse to live that way.
I think something people often miss too is the fact that your brain is your body, and the fuel that you feed your body feeds your brain. I think it's something often missed, and I had no idea about your teeth being connected to different organs. I think the brain functions the same way. It's directly just what you're consuming.
You can actually pull up a chart right now. I recommend anybody does it. You will see that the nervous system of the teeth is connected directly to the brain.
That's same with the eyes too, right?
Yes. Everything's connected in your body. They've taught us that everything is compartmentalized in life. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. We're connected as people. The mycelium network of mushrooms underground is connected. Roots are connected. Everything in the world has correlation. And once you understand that if one part of your body is off, it will reflect and manifest in other areas. So don't try to, I have a headache or I can't focus. Let me go take Adderall or let me go take Tylenol. That's a mask for your problems. Find the root cause and you'll find health.
Yeah, America seems to have an obsession with symptoms, treating symptoms because it's more lucrative than fixing the cause. So Peterson has a quote, something along the lines of, well, if you want to quit alcohol, that's pretty hard because alcohol is pretty good. So you need to find something a hell of a lot better than alcohol to stop doing it. Where have you kind of found that replacement in your life, and has quitting smoking weed been hard?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great quote. I would have to agree with it, because you don't just want to cut something out, you want to replace it. Many times when I would pick up a joint, smoke it, it was because I had idle time. I had free time and my default was to go smoke a joint. My default today is to go exercise. My default today is to go work. My default today is to go for a run. My default today is to go do some push-ups. When you have that urge, it doesn't mean you have to instantly gratify it. People have urges. I want some ice cream at midnight. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you have to go eat ice cream. I want to smoke a joint. Well, just because you want to smoke a joint, you feel like you want to smoke it, doesn't mean you're justified to do it. And you have to replace things in life. The idea of just cutting things out completely is very difficult. Replace it, lean off of it, go through a process, but realize that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. If you create so much space and time to not do anything, then you'll find yourself getting in trouble. Get busy, stay occupied, work hard, be diligent. When you go to bed, a man of God should go to bed exhausted, fully tired out, not in bed jerking off, watching porn because that's their fucking default. That's not the process of a man. A man is designed to be productive. A man is designed to work. A man is designed to level up. So when you create idleness, laziness, and you create space for your mind to just wander, many times if you're addicted to certain things, you will go back to old tendencies. The Bible once again says, when I became a man, I put away childish things. So a lot of people just have to level up, mature, grow, and realize that these things that we've attached to our identity, they are not us. You're not a pothead, You're not, you don't crave sugar. You're not a sweet tooth and kind of guy. No, these are all labels that people put to justify new ways of describing addiction, or they incorporate into their persona. And the moment you mention a joint, people get upset, like, calm the fuck down, bro. I've smoked more weed and the best weed on the planet than you will ever do. But the problem is people attach it to their identity. That's why you have to find your identity in better things. That's Paul says, find your identity in Christ. You can find your identity in health. You can find your identity in becoming a family man. Find it in things that propel you to become a better person, that propel you to be successful. And don't justify yourself with labels that are man-made, like, I'm a pothead. What is a fucking pothead? No, you're addicted to cannabis. period. Well, cannabis isn't addicting. Okay, well, quit it. Well, I don't want to. Okay, that sounds good. You're an addict. No, I'm not an addict. Well, yes. Okay, quit it. No, well, you can't. You're an addict. People need to understand, and because I had to understand, that labels create paradigms, frames of thinking that justify our actions. People say, I'm an athlete. You want labels? Have positive labels. Or I'm a successful husband. Okay, that's a good label to have. Find those labels that actually make your life better. Let go of the labels that no longer serve you, and don't use them as justification for doing bad shit.
Yeah, the Bible says, know thyself, not label thyself.
And knowing thyself is a process of exploration and a process of removing the things that are not true. People many times ask me, Luke, how do I find truth? And I usually point them back to the book of Proverbs, and truth is often compared to gold. The process of refining gold is not a process of adding things. It's a process of a lot of heat, a lot of pressure, the dirt rises to the top, that gets cleaned, and it gets refined. Truth is the same way. It's not about adding things. It's about removing, going to the root layer and knowing thyself. Marcus Aurelius said it, and when he said it, it was this understanding of most people have adopted labels that have been given to them. Like, you are not your name. If I ask you, who are you? Oh, well, I'm Jack. I'm from this place. This is what I do. No, those are all labels. And I didn't ask you where you're from. I ask you, who are you? And most people get shell-shocked at that question because most people have never asked themselves that question. They've just adopted labels from other people to construe this image of who they are supposed to be. And many times it's very warped because the images of what we're fed, of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a father, what it means to be a wife, a son, a daughter, have been fed to us. It's very important to explore truth. It's very important to, when truth talks to you, to listen. Because if you want truth, and most people want truth, that's why they're watching this podcast. A lot of people like to live in delusion, but people watching this content, they're looking for truth. Truth will many times challenge you to get rid of parts of your life in order to win. And once you're confronted with that reality, truth is often compared to as a mirror, where you look at yourself and you're like, wow, like I have to change these things. Only a fool would look at himself in the mirror, know that there's something to change, and walk away without changing. It'd be stupid. You go to a mirror right now, you have some stuff on your eyes, maybe a little stuff on your face, maybe you need a shave. You're like, okay, the truth is telling me that this is what I need to do. Most people in real life, they just walk away, ignore it. The man that realizes they need to become better, they need to level up, they need to adapt. Look at those things and they change. Why? Because they love themselves and they want to do what is best for them.
I find it really interesting what you're saying about the question of who are you without all the labels. I was asked that one time by a really spiritual-esque meditation type yoga woman. It tripped me out for a day or two. But I guess, Luke, without all the labels, who are you? And kind of ties into another question I was going to ask. If money, status, power were no objects, how would you spend your time?
Who am I? I'm still figuring it out. I'm still in the process of removing the programming that I've been given for the last 25 years about who I am, what I'm about, what are my values, what I believe. But I'll get back to you in a couple of years with that answer. What was the second question?
You said you're removing things.
Yeah, removing all the things in my life that I've been told that are meaningful, removing the things that society has told me equal success, things that society has told me equates to a man. We have this consensus nowadays that women, for example, that they have to go into the workplace and they have to compete with men, and there's this patriarchy and that men are terrible. Women have adopted this philosophy of being. Not everyone, but at least in this Western society they have. I go to Asia, they don't think that way. I go to Africa, they don't think that way. I go to Eastern Europe, they don't think that way. They've adopted a different philosophy of what? Of labels. In this case, more traditional ones. But once you adopt labels, that label becomes your identity. So my identity today, I would like to say, is found in Christ, because Christ is the perfect example and reflection of what it means to be in unity with God. And if my entire goal in life is to be in connection with the truth, aka God, then I have to remove everything that is not true.
Yeah. And I guess practically, what's one thing you recommend all people to remove right now?
Pride. Back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You can't succeed without humility. Pride is going to kill you. Pride is why Satan fell. He wanted to be like God. We want to be like God. We want to tell God what's right, what's wrong. We don't know shit. Humble yourself. If not, God's going to humble you.
Yeah, people say the first sin was when Eve and Adam bit the apple, disobeyed God, but in reality, the first sin was when Lucifer fell from heaven because he was prideful. It's the ultimate sin, the original sin. But the other question was, what would you do with your time if money, status, power were no object?
Help people. I think there's a lot of people in need, and it's hard to solve people's psychological problems and spiritual problems if you don't first supply their earthly needs. Many years ago, we provided water wells to Liberia. We helped in orphanages in Thailand. And you see these kids that have nothing, that a piece of bread satisfies them. An apple, just goes a very long way. So being able to spend time with people that are in need, helping them, is the ultimate form of satisfaction, because we're all the same. Jesus said something interesting. We're talking a lot about Jesus, but Jesus said something very interesting. He said, true religion is taking care of the widow and the orphan. So all these people that are sitting in padded pews with the air conditioning, singing their little bullshit Hillsong, choir songs, that haven't really done any real work with people, they need to have a reality check. Because if Jesus is telling you, hey, real religion, real loving me is taking care of the widow and the orphan, then that's what we need to do. So that's the process that I'm in. And if money is no constraint and time isn't a constraint, then that's what I would spend the rest of my life doing.
It's a really interesting framework that should be more obvious, that if you want to go to heaven, be like Jesus and just take the actions that he took and try to apply them today. A lot of people pray to Jesus, but they don't live like him.
And why?
Because people identify with labels as well.
Because they're hypocrites. Because they say something, but their heart is in a different place. Like, your actions are what matters. You will know them by their fruit. You will know them by their actions.
That makes me want to ask you more about something you said on our last podcast. It was a clip that did extremely well. It was, you are what you think about. Are your thoughts because of your actions, or your actions because of your thoughts? Like, where does it really start with?
There's this hermetical principle, as above, so below. Your will be done on heaven as it is on earth. Everything begins in the mind. In order for something to become real, it needs to first be thought, because thought is energy, and thought becomes manifested through action into the three-dimensional world, right? So action is what makes the thought reality, but it all works together. That's why Paul says, without what? Works, faith is dead. Because the only way that you know that faith is real is if your actions match to what you believe. Because if you believe something, but you don't do what you believe, do you actually believe it? Or are you just a hypocrite? So everything is in symbiosis. You need to control your thoughts, because your thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to habits. Habits lead to behavior. Behavior leads to lifestyle. Lifestyle then what? Feeds back to your thoughts. Because what you feed is what you spend time on. There's this common parable of two dogs, the white dog and the black dog. Whichever one you feed the most is going to win the battle. If they're supposed to go against each other in some dog type of dog battle, the one that you feed, the one that you strengthen, is the one that's going to dominate. If you're out here watching porn all day, satisfying yourself with social media, objectifying women, thinking about, the next rapper's drama and song, but you spend no time with God, spend no time developing your physique, spend no time in nature, what you feed becomes strong. And what I realized was that my desires were mine, and they were there because I was feeding them. So the things that I wanted in life, they were there because I put them there. The reason I looked at a woman in a certain way was because of the things that I was feeding myself that changed my perception and my worldview. So you need to control what you feed, which will then control what you think. And it's a hyperloop that every single person is always in. So you need to match every aspect and always be aware.
And find the root cause.
That's it.
If you had 5 minutes with Jesus Christ, what would you say to him?
You can have 5 minutes with Jesus Christ at all times. Jesus never wrote a word, which is interesting. Everything was written about how he lived and who he was. But back to your question, if I had 5 minutes with Jesus Christ, I would ask him, I've never been asked that question before. If I had 5 minutes with Jesus Christ, I would ask him, what is the best way to love people? I mean, he exemplified it. I don't need to ask him. Sacrifice. He sacrificed himself. He sacrificed what he wanted, who he was, for others, which is the story of the cross. I probably wouldn't ask anything. I'd probably just sit and listen. He'd probably spit some mad game, some parables here and there, leave me kind of whacked out. And be like, oh, no wonder you're Jesus. Yeah. He's an interesting character in history that every person with humility should go and study. There's a reason people echo his name. There's a reason why billions of people worship him. Why? It's worth exploring. There must be something there.
What has made you doubt your faith?
Doubt isn't a bad thing. Doubt is something that every person should have regarding their faith. Because how do you know that your faith is your own? How do you know that that hasn't been given to you? I had a podcast a couple months ago where I had this guy, he said, I'm a Christian. And I asked him a very simple question. It got clipped out of the podcast because I kind of grilled him. But I asked him, well, do you believe the story of the cross or the story of Jesus dying on the cross? He said, yes. And I said, well, okay, well, which mount did he die on? Or where did he die? He was like, I don't know. I was like, well, do you even know? He's like, no, I believe these things. It doesn't really work that way. The idea of cementing your faith or really truly knowing goes through questioning. The scientific method is a process of questioning, exploring, observing, and seeing what worldview matches best to live a wholesome, fulfilled life. And I just happen to correlate and resonate with the worldview of Jesus. I'm not perfect. I'm very far from it. But the way that he conducted himself towards people. You want to talk about feminism? Jesus was the ultimate feminist. He protected women, protected their rights, protected their value more than any other person in history. If you're a feminist left-winger, go study Jesus. You'll love him. And if you don't, it's because you have pride. And there's certain areas that you might disagree with him, but we've been deceived. We've been told, oh, well, Jesus equals the church, or Jesus equals this dumbass pastor that doesn't even understand what it means to have a relationship with God. And this is how you should act, and this is how you should behave. Or this youth pastor treated me poorly, or this person at school was Bible thumping me. Yeah, but that is not God. That has nothing to do with him. That is what you're casting upon him of what it actually means to have faith. Faith is something that comes through questioning. There's no issue doubting your faith. You just have to spend a lot of time, once again, removing all the lies, removing all the garbage, and eventually you'll find the gold, the truth.
I think people often think of their religion as their identity with the community of other people in that religion, as opposed to their identity with the creator itself or the religion itself. It's often like, what does this religion make me feel like when I spend time with people of that religion, rather than when I just do the work myself? It's an interesting thought you maybe have.
My comment to that is very simple. If God can speak to other men, he can speak to me. If God can speak to a prophet, add any prophet's name, he can speak to me as well. There's no difference between them and me. What I need to do is be receptive, understand what it takes to speak to God. Most people don't know that they're full of static. They're full of distractions. They haven't created a space to meditate. There's a verse that says, be still and know that I am God. Not be still and believe that I am God, or be still, stop, and let God speak to you. And he will, because we are all created in his image, and God loves all of us. And if we stop, we spend time with him listening, because we know nothing. And we're talking out of our asses here. Like, let's be real. We don't know anything. Then he can guide you. And you don't want to make decisions on your own. You want the creator of the universe, who's readily and available, to guide you and to help you through the process of life. And I've just found it to be a lot more rewarding with God by my side.
Do you think there's any validity to numerology?
Absolutely. Numbers are the language of the universe. They are the universal language on which everything is built, whether it's the construct of the pyramids, whether it's the construct of the planet, whether it's the stars. Numbers are the language of God.
How do you use numerology to make money?
I'll tell you when I get there. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I know it's valid. I mean, you look at some of I believe it was Rockefeller, he said, and he didn't mention numerology, he mentioned astrology, but there's a lot of correlation through numbers that millionaires don't study astrology, billionaires do. I don't know why he said it, but he said it for a reason. Maybe it's because he knows. He was a billionaire. But I haven't really delved much into this world. Maybe when I have a little bit more free time from all these meme coins. Just kidding.
Last time on this podcast, you had a clip get 25 million views where you said the best piece of advice you received was, you are what you think about. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
The worst piece of advice I've ever received is that good things come to those who wait. Good things don't come to those who wait. Good things come to those who act upon what they know through consistency and repetition. That's how good things happen. Things don't just fall on your lap. Blessings come through effort, dedication, and a lot of energy towards your goal and endeavor. Patience is a virtue, and it's a good thing. But when it comes to accomplishing your goals and your dreams, if you want to be successful, there's no time to waste. Time does not wait for you. Life does not wait for you. You have to either grab it and go for it, or you'll be left behind.
Beautifully said. Well, everyone, this is the Jack Neel Podcast. Thank you to Luke Belmar here for hosting us in Puerto Rico.
Comment, #I studied. Peace. Part 3.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks.